welcome you all to the first of 4 conversations that we are going to have related to our 2019 production of Eugene Ionesco's Killing Game. Dado, tell us a little bit about why we're here and why we're talking about this.
Well, we put together a 4 panel series on a play by Eugene Ionesco called Killing Game. In 2019, we produced this play, and I directed it. And when the pandemic broke out, we all started to feel like we were living in the year before this year. And we started to realize maybe we should take this opportunity while we're not able to make new art to talk about what we did last year. So this is called When Fiction Becomes Reality. And so welcome. We envision this panel series to go like a casual conversation with some of the artists and some people that we bring in from the outside who are relevant to the conversation. And we also ask our panel guests to espouse an organization, to bring us an organization that we can amplify and support.
Today, we have Dr. Robert L. Murphy with us. Dr. Murphy is the executive director for the Institute for Global Health and a professor of infectious diseases at the Feinberg School of Medicine at Northwestern University. We also have Emilio Williams with us. He is an award-winning playwright who teaches at several local schools, including DePaul University and Columbia College, and he's a resident playwright with Chicago Dramatists. We have Dano Duran with us. He is a Chicago-based actor and a real estate broker who was on stage as a performer in Killing Game. We also have Dado, who's here next to me, you can see, who is a member of the artistic ensemble at A Red Orchid Theater and the director of Killing Game.
Yes.
So we're going to have some conversation with these folks about this fiction that we produced a year ago and how it has quickly become a reality and seems every day to become more and more a reality. There's also people out there that are making things better. And Dr. Murphy and Emilio Williams asked us to talk a little bit about, or to share with you information about YEP. That is the Youth Empowerment Performance Project. The mission of YEP is to create safe environments for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer youth experiencing homelessness. And you can check out more information about them at www.wesayYep.com. Having done this play about a plague ravaging an unknown city and now finding ourselves in the throes of a pandemic ourselves, we're really excited about the possibility of further exploring or interrogating some of the issues surrounding it. One of the first things we want to do is experience a little bit of the play that our audience members and actor and director participated in.
Do you still live in the 21st district? What are you doing around here? We were told that your neighborhood was hit the hardest, worse than the 25th, yet less than the 27th. I requested that borders be established, boundaries, to make sure that people from highly infected areas did not come in to take refuge in safer neighborhoods, especially mine, the 1st district. How did you manage to slip through? I had the regulation drawn up myself. It was signed by the majority of the town council.
I'm not doing you any harm.
Yes, well, there's no proof of that. I am going to alert the police.
No,
At once.
I come into your district in the line of duty. I'm in charge of food supply. Now that fresh fruit has been forbidden, I have to see to rationing stewed fruits. But here's my pass and my order.
I can see it from a distance. Thank you. And your family?
Well, some of them are still alive. Others have died.
Could they have delegated someone from the 21st district to work for the food supply? Now, you speak to me from a 3-yard, no, 5-yard distance. I don't want your germs.
And your family?
No one in my family is sick or dead. There has not been one sick house on my street.
Well, you never know what will happen tomorrow.
Nothing will happen to me nor to my family. Now you stay back. You come from a highly unhealthy area.
Well, you seem very confident, I must say. How can you be so certain, so cocky, in fact, at a time when catastrophe strikes and devastates our city?
Well, it's not rocket science. Those who are dead, dying, or ill were careless. The trick is to keep away from the crowds, keep away from the sick, keep your distance as I do from those like you, who without being sick have been close to those who are. In a word, avoid the wrong people.
Well, what if you were a doctor or a nurse or an undertaker's assistant? What would you do?
I would resign. Besides, that's not the case. The only money that I touch is from stocks and bonds. I leave the risky jobs to other people. I'm out of harm's way. I have touched no diseased body.
Wow, you're very lucky not to have to risk your life for others, and yet others risk theirs for you. But don't get too complacent, old chap, because you never know who is sick and who is well. We see people full of life and seemingly good health in the pink, as they say, who drop dead an hour later.
If I've managed to escape up till now, I'll manage to get through the rest. I'm not a selfish person, as long as what is expected of me is within limits. Under normal circumstances, I don't mind helping out. But in these times, we have the right and the duty to be wary and cautious. We have the right and the duty to be selfish, temporarily.
Oh, yes. That's one way of looking at things.
You bet it is. I have a knack for dodging trouble. I'm never in the presence of people who represent any kind of a threat. I never see doctors, nurses, morgue assistants. I only buy food in the best groceries. It's better to spend a few dollars more if it gives you the certainty of being out of danger. My life is worth that.
Now, weren't you seen at the stuffed turkey yesterday? Huh? And weren't you seated in one of those dining rooms with Monsieur Daniel?
Well, I was. That gentleman is a friend of mine, and we had business to discuss. Well, he is a fine-looking specimen of a man, somewhat stocky, and he takes the same precautions as I do. We deliberately dined in a private dining room so no one could contaminate us.
I see.
Well, why did you say I see like that?
Oh, I say I see because I say I see. Did I say I see? Keep your distance.
You're not going to tell me?
I have nothing to tell.
Tell me what you were going to say before you said you had nothing to tell.
Keep your distance, I said. Don't make me repeat it.
That gentleman, my friend, is he sick? Tell me, is he sick?
No, he's not sick, not anymore.
Well, then he's recovered.
No, he's dead.
I guess what really popped out at me this time watching this is dining rooms. The character Doug plays eats in a restaurant, and that's such a controversial kind of topic today because it's turning out that you really can't eat in restaurants.
I kept hearing the things that jumped out to me were like, keep away, keep your distance, keep a 6 yards. Yep. And that notion that nobody in my immediate area is infected.
And Dano's character said you're being cocky, right? That idea of some people feel invincible against the virus. I thought that was very relevant.
The things that had created a stigma within the play, like the touching on of contact tracing, mirrors what is going on now. Especially in early on in the virus, people were apprehensive about giving out like who they had come in contact with.
So Dado, you were saying fiction becoming reality, but the interesting thing is that this Ionesco play is based on Daniel Defoe's chronic of the play from the 19th century that it got published at the beginning of the 18th century. And I think when I went to see the play the first time, and then I brought Rob when he came back from one of his trips to see it as an infectious disease doctor, for me was very relevant because of the AIDS crisis. Not knowing so much of the history on previous pandemics that Rob knows a lot about. But what I want to go with this is that it is really, the play may be absurdist and very Ionesco, but it's based on the true experiences of what is a pandemic. But the thing is, like, all of us have forgotten what it is. I think so many of your audience members reacted because they lived the AIDS crisis so closely, and they could feel so much relevance on the play because they remember that plague so closely. And for me, it goes to the importance of this idea of recovering history. And what I want to ask Rob, I know Rob, Dr. Rob has been researching the history of the 1918 flu, which is called the Spanish flu as a misnomer, because calling that flu the Spanish flu is like calling coronavirus the Wuhan virus, because it didn't come from where I'm from Spain. But Rob, tell us about what you learned about studying the 1918 flu that is relevant for today.
Well, despite being in 1918, despite not knowing it was caused by a virus, I mean, they debated what it was causing it throughout the entire 2-year epidemic. But what happened was, very similar to today, there was no presidential leadership. There was no leadership at the top. Everything was left up to the cities, not even the states, but the cities. And they started banning travel. That was like, it's like mentioned, don't come into my space. This space we know is clean.
Districts, yeah.
It goes back to 1918. And they had 3 very distinct waves. We never had that. We've had 3 peaks, but we never went down in between the peaks. It just kept adding on. And that's what's very different about this pandemic. The cities like San Francisco and St. Louis that actually mandated mask wearing and closed the bars, closed the restaurants, and stopped all the gatherings did not suffer nearly as bad as places like Philadelphia and many other cities that kind of had this laissez-faire attitude. They were having parades. Soldiers were coming back from World War I, and they said, "Oh, we have to celebrate this. We're not going to worry about the flu." Well, they had a devastating crisis. The same thing we have here with bodies stacked up in morgues and hospitals overflowing, and it was a disaster. So we know what happened with that. 550,000 people died. More American servicemen died of flu than in combat in World War I. And actually, it was the mobilization of the army that spread it around the country. It was the travel. Yeah. And then what I find the most fascinating, and 3 times as many people died as what have died so far right now. Of course, our pandemic's not over. But when it was over, we began the Roaring 20s. Nobody talked about it. It's not even mentioned in the Encyclopedia Britannica of 1920.
Wow.
It's complete erasure of memory.
That gives me the chills.
The first book that was written about it.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is?
Well, you should tell me. This is the first book written about it. 1976. What? It was a book written about the 1918 pandemic that killed 600,000 Americans and 50 million people worldwide.
Just like out of sight, out of mind.
We don't even want to, it was so horrible.
Exactly.
We don't want to think about it. And I really think human nature is going to do the same thing with this pandemic, whether it's because of the vaccine or treatment or antibodies, which just got approved today. You watch, I predict when this is over, that was just like a bad year.
And what, we've solved all the problems now? We figured it out so it can't happen again?
Figured it out.
So, and that's why I was interviewing Rob at the time, right? How can we make sure that this thing that happened with the flu of 1918 doesn't happen again? Or this idea that Dado, I don't know if you remember when you did this show, I told you this show was hyper-realistic.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It was a crazy show. And I said, no, this is like a documentary theater.
Yep.
Right? So, and that's because that's the memory gap. We don't remember that's what happens under a pandemic.
Is that why there was so much humor found in the play, because if it was done now, I don't think people would be
It's
laughing.
hilarious. But I was watching some of the clips today before our meeting, and they were hard to watch, to see the
Yeah.
people dropping dead.
And
Yeah.
so, Dano, that's a good question for you. Like, how would
Right.
you perform this differently?
You know, I don't know. I mean, we all know at least one or two people that have contracted this virus, and hopefully they've come out the other side being fine. But you know, I think our family knows a couple of people that have died from it. So I think that would really pepper the actors. The emotional investment would be immediate. And I think navigating through the delicate nature of it would be far more difficult than anything else. And I think there'd be major differences, like what would be politicized, like a mask now tends to be politicized. Would it be the body part? And would those be held in a different regard if we did it right now?
It's a very bizarre thing when the mortality rate is 0.65%. It's less than 1% die, whereas the flu is 0.1%. So coronavirus is 6.5 times worse than the flu, but still it's less than 1% die. So that, I think, gets thrown into the equation. Like, people think, oh, that's, you know,
No big deal.
1 in 200, you know, I mean, like they start rationalizing that doesn't make any difference. However, if you look at it from the medical view and the society's view, every year, and this is very stable, 2.8 million people die of everything in the US. Now it's going to be 2.85 million plus in this year alone, 2020, another 350,000 in addition to that. So the number of people dying is going to increase by 10 to 15%. And what does that mean? That means that the hospitals get overloaded.
Right.
The doctors get overloaded. The healthcare system starts to crumble, and that affects your ability to, like, the mammograms for women is down almost like 50%. So people are not getting screened for the usual diseases. They're avoiding the doctor. They're not going to the dentist. They're not doing all this. Mental health is a complete nightmare right now. People are not going to seek treatment.
So this is interesting because one of the things, I was really little during AIDS, but one of the things I remember in the beginning is no one knew how anybody got it. That's the fear I remember the most.
Yeah.
No one knew how you contract this. And that's how I kind of thought of, you know, when we were watching Scene 5 just now, and then listening to you talk about how these things transform into other viruses. I mean, I guess I want to, you know, I guess it makes me wonder about misinformation and how information is, one of the things that's so interesting about watching the scene we just watched is like, they're talking about this like they know everything. Both sides think they know everything about it, and even though there's no cell phones, but the you know, or no, we don't have that kind of technology when this play was written, but that is exacerbated today.
Well, doctors are really terrible communicators. I mean, this is a field where like there's like almost, we know how to talk to each other, but we might as well be speaking Hungarian because nobody knows what we're talking about. And then that's one thing. We don't communicate well. But the other thing is, I mean, I didn't see this in the AIDS epidemic, but doctors are actually being vilified.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get hate mail. People send me these nasty letters. And
You?
Oh yeah.
What?
Oh yeah. I'm ruining their business. You have ruined my life. I had a restaurant in Naperville. I'm not kidding. This is a true story. In Naperville, and you're saying to close the restaurants. I'm going out of business. It's my fault.
It's your fault, right?
It's my fault.
Well, that's a parallel, and Doug says that in our scene where the doctors and nurses and undertakers' assistants they're seen as threats, and I think that's very much what Dr. Rob was just saying. Even now, where we have a president that says that they are paid by every COVID case that they get. Again, misinformation.
We're like just absolutely flabbergasted. Medical professionals that deal with infections, we're not the rich ones. We're not neurosurgeons. You're absolutely right. You can do herd immunity if you just let everybody get infected.
Sure.
But are you willing to kill 3 million Americans? They estimate 2 to 3 million.
So Emilio, you use this word hyper realism, and the scene I want to show next is about some doctors. There's a scene later in the play with 6 doctors, and 4 of them believe that science is the answer to immortality, and 2 scientists are trying to plead for the case of actual science. And I just want to preface this by saying that because I'd like to have a little bit more conversation about this hyper realism idea. In the stage directions, Ionesco writes, Eugene Ionesco, the playwright, writes, this doctor bursts into song, this doctor bursts into song. So we wrote a kind of and then he later writes that they burst into opera. And so we created a song for the doctors, and I'm going to show it. Okay, so you can all hear them arguing about science.
Those who die are bad citizens. The dead were unindoctrinated. We should chastise their descendants.
Death is the ultimate form of alienation.
You are merely uttering cliches.
Common sense engenders nothing but false truths. A world of different separates common sense and truth. You wish to ignore death, but death will not ignore you. We cannot escape.
That's true.
I would like to be able to hear like, no, the harvest village. I haven't got the heart to. Excuse me. Bum ba dum ba dum. Bum ba dum ba dum. Bum ba dum ba dum. Nor am I. Bum ba dum ba dum.
But not for the same reason. Her own fault. She asked for it. She sets a very bad example. Death is not the rule, but bad exceptions are contagious.
It's sickness, which is contagious. Excuse me. I must excuse myself.
You see, 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 we shall prove that death does not exist for us.
We who believe in science, in progress, we shall set a good example.
Down with death! Long live life! Don't fall, don't fall. Don't fall, don't fall. Don't fall, don't fall. Oh. Come on, don't fall over, come on. I hope that I don't fall.
Oh God.
So I don't mean that this particular scene is hyperrealism. I just wanted to show it because really when you get this script in front of you, it's not even a script. It's more, it's not a documentary type docudrama play, but it is really just 17 little skits and little weird stage directions. And then you have to somehow make it something.
Well, I think when I say hyper-realistic, is like all these wonderful playwrights after Second World War, they realized they couldn't use the regular theater to explain our reality. Our reality has transcended the way we present in life. And for me, your play and your show, this is more truthful, this play, to what is my life experience.
But we didn't know how truthful.
Yeah, but it goes to the circle of the question of history, right? We didn't know how truthful it was because we forgot as a society how truthful this is, right?
Some of that speaks, Emilio, to my very first experience with A Red Orchid was in the audience of another Ionesco play called Victims of Duty. And I was young and new to Chicago, or new back to the city, even though I grew up here. But I remember walking. I saw that play, and I walked out of the theater, and it like didn't compute logically, and yet it made perfect sense emotionally and viscerally, and I just, like, all I wanted to do was sit in it again and try and figure out what this crazy journey was. And I don't think I realized that until I experienced that in the audience, that you could accomplish that in a different way.
Rob, what happened when you saw this show? You went to see this Ionesco show at the Red Orchid. What was your reaction? You remember?
It reminded me of the more the AIDS epidemic, where, I mean, I was, obviously much younger then, and the people around me were about the same age, and literally they were, before the treatment, got better in 1996, but from 1981 to 1996, it really, literally, it reminded me of just the people just falling down. I'm dead. I mean, it was just, I was signing so many death certificates. I mean, it was really hard, very hard. And that actually pushed me into research, because I figure I could work 24 hours a day. I'm not going to save another person. It wouldn't help. And so I switched gears and worked on developing drugs, antiviral drugs. That's what motivated it. But I remember just people would just, all the gay, so the gay community in Chicago was taken care of by about 15 gay doctors. And first they started referring, the patients were so sick, they were referring them to me at the university, because we had more resources, and those patients were dying. And then those doctors became my patients. And then just all of them were just dead. Artists, bankers, lawyers, musicians, everything. And it was just, that's what it reminded me of.
We need to be writing the COVID plays for the next generation to remember what happened, so we don't forget COVID the way we forgot the 1918 flu, right?
That really is stunning that that flu was
forgotten, erased.
Dano,
as a player, I can't wait to ask you, what was be part of this craziness of this show, and what was, I mean, where did you hold on to truths?
The rehearsal process was interesting. It was a lot of experimentation, and it was a lot of self-awareness within you and space, and what these little vignettes were to you, and what they were as to an audience member, because they saw something very different than what was on the, there was nothing on the page. I mean, Dado was right in saying that. I think we started off very simply and let it grow and let it become whatever it was that it became, without a lot of pushing from our director. and she allowed us to infuse, like, for example, we all had a body, what she called it was a body part. It was a body part. It was a mannequin part, and they were at one point at the end, right when we went into our first dress, they were made like, they looked like they were just gangrenous pieces of flesh, which were fascinating to hold. And everyone had their own meaning behind them, and Dado allowed that. She didn't Dado's a very specific director, but she allows the specificity to come within the actor, which is awesome.
It's just a matter of time before the next one is going to happen, because we're just, as a world, we're too mobile. We're too everyone is interconnected, like just between Illinois and Indiana. But, you know, Europe and here, Africa, you know, I mean, I used to fly over 200,000 miles a year. You know, I mean, all the connections and everything.
And what's the connection to environment? The fact that we are in places.
Well, the environment is, there's two things. It's one, population, human encroaching upon the ecosystem of a particular vector. I mentioned minks in Denmark, but I mean, there's all these other animals in all these other, like Ebola, the fruit bat.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I mean, people, they didn't have big cities in Africa before. Now there's urbanization going on. They're building roads, dams, they're putting, I mean, the infrastructure is developing, and the people, the population is increasing. It's a little under 1 billion now. It's going to be 4 billion by 2050. So where are they going to be living? They're moving into these tropical areas where all these animals and other viruses have. So there's going to be more interaction. So global warming is also moving the tropical areas bigger as it gets warmer.
Okay.
So, you know, I mean, you know, the southern part of the United States was loaded with malaria and dengue and all sorts of stuff years ago.
Right.
Get rid of it, but it's not like it couldn't come back there. I work in Mali. It's in West Africa, big country, right on top of Guinea, where there was a terrible problem. It's one of the poorest countries in the world. The per capita annual income is about $750 per person per year. It's one of the poorest countries in the world. But they've had this huge US government and French government funded malaria program for like 25 years. And they have all these epidemiologists, and they have molecular virology laboratories and stuff. I mean, I've been working there for 15 years. And nothing. They had, I think they had 8 cases.
Wow.
So I did not read the Dario Fo's book when I was preparing Killing Game, but it's now hitting me. The plague at the end of the play just disappears. It just disappears. And
every pandemic goes away. Every single one. Every one of them goes away. From the Justinian age. They may take 5 years to go away, but they go away.
What are some of the things that, I mean, like, what can we do other than actually listen to the people who know what the heck they're talking about? Yeah, I see that. And are there...
You have to believe in science.
Yeah, right about it.
And you have to stop demonizing the heroes who are saving our lives and our families and accusing them on trying to reach themselves through this nightmare.
So the way money goes in the United States, which we fund the bulk of the world's research. I mean, the Europeans do lots, and you know, but by far, the United States is number one in innovation and scientific development. And you get the money flows where the deaths are. How many people get killed? How many lives lost? And the younger it kills you, the more life years are lost. So there's like this formula. That's why AIDS got so much money and still gets a lot of money, because you get it when you're young, and you just lost 40 years of a human life when they die. So that's why coronavirus has been around forever, but other than the 10,000 people that got SARS, not much. So there was like nobody hardly studying it. But influenza, since it kills 1 in 1,000 of everybody that gets it, that's enough to cause a ruckus, even here, because it kills babies and it kills old people for the most part.
But I like Kirsten's question, because I remember feeling when I was directing Killing Game, I remember feeling very helpless because of the way the play is constructed, and you just kind of go on this crazy roller coaster. And one of the things that one of the goals when I started working on it was that I needed the play to feel like an emergency, a relentless emergency, and it needs to go very fast, and the scenes need to be overlapping and happening on top of each other. And that really is how it felt when this virus erupted on us. Like, it just felt like we were on this crazy train and we didn't know where it was going. And it was very, very scary. And there is this kind of helpless feeling. And
it still feels like that.
It still feels like that, because we can't feel the end. We can't feel we don't know where we are, like Dr. Rob is saying, in the wave. Is there a wave? Is there a third wave? So we're just in this crazy extensive timeline of we don't know. And
what science can do, though, is for influenza, because it does kill a lot of people worldwide, and young people and old people and whatever, there's I think it's about 50 influenza kind of testing stations around the world, funded by WHO or the United States.
What are other things? Give us some hope. Dr. Murphy, they're trying to get something to hold on to here before we finish.
Well, science is hope. Yeah. You said it at the beginning. I mean, they did the genetic sequencing of this virus on January 12th. The disease was recognized on December 31st. 2 weeks later, they sequenced the whole gene. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And as soon as they had the sequence, they could start studying it, and then they could start making vaccines. That happened very early on. And then by the end of February, there were over 100 companies trying to make a vaccine. And then Operation Warp Speed, I hate to give Trump any credit for anything, but that actually accelerated the whole process for the vaccine companies. And if you look at what Dr. Fauci was saying and Dr. Birx, experts like myself, we said it's never going to happen until middle or end of 2021. There's nobody more surprised than me that there's an EU emergency use authorization for the Pfizer vaccine is being applied for right now.
Wow.
This blew my mind. But it's a combination of the basic science is there, and the US government put in billions of dollars into these companies before they had a product. So science, so drugs, they're developing, vaccines, the testing is gotten better. We were at about 4 months ago, there were only 1 million tests per day. They're up to very close to 6 million a day, but more people are getting tested, so it doesn't feel like it's getting any better. But it has improved 6-fold, and it's going in the right direction. So those three things are going on. And I don't know, today, Eli Lilly got their antibody EUA approved.
Oh.
Yeah, today.
And that's got to, because I know months ago when we had a conversation with you all, the antibody test, people were starting to talk about it, but it wasn't reliable.
So Trump took the Regeneron antibody, but it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
And so, when you give a vaccine, you make an antibody.
Right.
The other way to do it is make the antibody and just give you the antibody.
Right.
That's a different approach.
Where should people be looking for facts, for actual real information?
Well, I used to say the CDC, but now I don't believe but that's going to change.
Yeah.
But anything from the NIH, I would say WHO is just a little bit more cautious in their approach, and they're thinking more in terms of low-income countries, not really what's going on here. But you know, there's really some very good information that's published every day from the Johns Hopkins website and the University of Washington and a variety of other reputable sources. You got to be very careful because there's some real crap up there.
Actually, I feel a lot better, and I mean, I guess we should wrap it up, but I just want to say how relieved I am to actually finally have this conversation, because it's been driving me crazy. The last thing I did before the lockdown in March was I had to do a lecture at the University of Chicago on Killing Game, and as I was doing it, the school was shutting down, and as I was doing it, everybody's there. I remember the faces in the audience, just like, what's happening? And I could feel it. And so it means a lot that we can have this conversation and use this this crazy script, 17 skits as a launching off point. So.
Thank you for letting me plug. So
I'd love for you to tell us about
I'm going to
them.
explain very quick what this is. So unfortunately, young people who are queer have are disproportionately affected by homelessness because they're kicking out of their homes, believe it or not, for being queer, or because they fall down the cracks of the system. And you know, this has been very close to my heart, because imagine our idea of a stay-at-home order, but when you don't have a home, how do you stay at home, right? Or, you know, when you are caught surfing from home to home, and then you're not able to do that anymore because you become dangerous for the families, right, who are hosting you. Yeah. So this is a population that is particularly hurt in Chicago. And we've been working with Youth Empowerment Performance Project, which is a wonderful organization that gets these kids a safe place, and they use performance and art to deal with the traumas of their lives and to try to make things better for them in their lives. And this is their website, wesayyep.com. Yep is Y-E-P-P, and you can donate money. And this is a very well use of any penny that you can spare. And they're, you know, really this group are at the intersection of everything we talk about today, right? So for example, how are you going to be taking your HIV medication every day, going to the doctor every month if you don't even have a home, right? Right. And all these things. I mean, imagine if we're having a hard time, me, myself, under this roof with all my beautiful books, and this is hard for me, then we have to think how hard it is for these kids.
Yeah, yeah.
So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you for so much, all of you, for talking with us about this crazy play in this crazy time.
Yeah,
well, especially so
all you do is talk about diseases all day. So I really appreciate you.
No, and thank you, Red Orchid, for being so brave artistically, because you guys could have sell out a long time ago and you didn't. And you take risks and you do these crazy plays still to this day. And you have something for everybody every single season. So thank you guys for being there. We love you.
Thank you.
We love you too. I cannot wait for the next one when we can all be in the same room together.
Awesome.
I'll tell you, the medical community is, like, in the last couple days since Biden has been, you know, president-elect by at least some of the news organizations, has really been, it's 180 degrees. I mean, people are so ecstatically happy. Yeah.
Bonkers.
And so with that,
now we got real people in there.
We're gonna stick to the hope part of the conversation. And we're gonna try. We're gonna get through this, everybody. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Good.